What if Nika was never just a god? What if he was actually a titan? An ancient being so massive that the world we know today is just the wreckage he left behind. Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back. I've been sitting on this theory for a while, and the recent chapters basically forced me to finally make this video. 3. Impossible objects. A giant harp in Esperia, a monstrous sword in Elbaf, a skull the size of an island in Wano. Oda is connecting them on purpose. If theories like this are your thing, hit subscribe. It really does help. Now stay with me, because the first world of One Piece is wilder than anyone realized. Here's the thing, Oda has been showing us the answer the entire time. The One Piece world is full of objects that simply should not exist at the current scale of any race. Take chapter 1183. Brook's flashback opens up to the kingdom of Esperia, and right in the center of the island sits this gigantic harp, not held by anyone, foundational. A whole castle is built on top of it. The harp isn't decoration. It is older than the city itself, and when I saw that panel, one thing clicked instantly. That's not just set dressing. That's a clue that ties directly into a theory I've been chasing for months. A theory about what existed before the Void Century. Now look at Elbaf. There's a sword driven into the base of the Tree of Adam. Absurdly large, not even an ancient giant could lift that blade today. Then Wano, the skull of Onigashima, the one Kaido used as an entire island. It is real, confirmed, and it has horns, classic ancient giant traits, except much, much bigger. Now, back to Esperia. A harp so colossal that an entire nation was built around it. These aren't random props. Oda plants seeds early and waters them way later. We've seen this before. Sea Kings since chapter 1. The sun god teased back in Esperia. The Lunarians, Emu. He's been doing this for 25 years. And for me, these giant artifacts are exactly that. Quiet little time bombs, pieces of a much older story he's only now starting to actually tell us. Because there's a pattern, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Each of these objects shaped the civilization that grew up around it, almost like the relic chose them. But the real bombshell is buried in chapter 1138. Oda finally pulled the curtain back. He showed us a mural carved on the Tree of Adam itself. And this mural is not just art, it's a record, a timeline of previous worlds the planet has lived through. And in the very center stands a colossal tree with a black dragon attacking it. Harley's text describes a world of fire, catastrophe, and destruction. And right there, drawn into the carving, are beings of a completely different scale than anything we know today. The mural separates this period from the Void Century. It is older, much older. It calls itself the First World. And before the Void Century ever happened, the First World had titans. For me, this single mural reframes the entire timeline of One Piece. It means we've been told the story of the Void Century, but the Void Century isn't even the beginning. And here's the crazy part. There's a specific pattern tying these giant artifacts to the cultures that grew around them. Elbaf, with its sword, became a nation of warriors. They exist to prove they deserve a good death in battle. The Norse legend of Brainstall, Odin's sword in a tree, only the worthy can pull it free, fits Elbaf perfectly. Wano grew around that colossal skull and the katana driven into its side. And what does Wano produce? The greatest swordsmiths in the world. The finest blades ever forged. That obsession with swordcraft isn't random. It is a culture that grew up in the shadow of a titanic relic. The katana shaped them just as much as their geography. And Esperia, a nation entirely devoted to music, instrument makers, singers, composers. Their identity is inseparable from the art of music. And at the center of it all, that harp. It is like these objects carry a will, something close to what One Piece calls ambition, almost a hockey seeping into the stone. The Titans died. Their will didn't. Okay, so this is where it gets nuts. Who were these Titans? Chapter 1175 finally gave us a name. Ja Rule, one of Elbaf's eldest, told the legend of the god of war. He used the Nidhogg fruit, a mythical black dragon, at a scale that breaks comprehension. He carried a hammer called Ragnar, and at his side, a loyal companion, Ratatoskra, the ice squirrel. And this god of war fought the sun god in single combat. one of the decisive battles of the First World, two titans, one ending. The kind of myth Oda doesn't write twice. Now the Nidhogg fruit itself confirms something huge. It scales with whoever eats it. A human becomes a big dragon. A giant becomes an enormous one. An ancient giant? They become a world-shattering threat. Loki is an ancient giant, and he is already absurd. Imagine someone twice as old, twice as big, eating that exact fruit. The original god of war was operating at a level no current power can match, because the beings of that age were just bigger, by orders of magnitude. And this is the part most people skip past. The beings of the past were literally larger. Over time, they shrank, generation after generation. The world got smaller. The skull of Onigashima has horns. Classic ancient giant trait. But no ancient giant alive today comes anywhere near that size. Jarul is 400 years old, still tiny in comparison. A scale of greatness has been quietly slipping away across the eras, and the reason is hiding in plain sight. The flood, the planet was drowned in the past. We know there was way more habitable land before, and that the loss of surface created a brutal shortage of space and food, and massive beings need massive amounts of both. So the giants starved. The smaller survivors lasted longer on less. They passed on their genes, and over centuries, the species just shrank. Natural selection on a mythic scale. I love this idea, honestly. It is grim, but it works. The Titans didn't get defeated by a sword. They got defeated by ecology, and what survived of them are the artifacts. Now here's where I really lose my mind. Oars. Look at Little Oars Jr. at Marineford. His flag says he's the third of his bloodline, the third Oars. Which means there was a second. We've already met him. Oars the second, the ancient giant from Thriller Bark that Moria pulled out of the ice. And the second is way bigger than the third. So if a second exists, a first exists. And the first should be way bigger than the second. And where is the first Oars? I think we've actually been staring at his skeleton this entire arc. The skull of Onigashima. It is him. The size lines up, so do the horns. The katana driven beside it matches the Oars' combat style. They've always been linked to swords and to hats. Big traditional straw hats, the same kind Ace gave Junior in Wano. And the resurrected Oars on Thriller Bark, the first thing he tries to grab when he wakes up, a straw hat like that. That's not random, that's bloodline memory. That tells me the original Oars probably died in Wano, and the tradition of that hat passed down through the bloodline for centuries. A title called Continent Puller suddenly hits different. And honestly, Wano's geography fits. Look at the island. It is a mosaic of completely different chunks of land stitched together, almost like something physically dragged them into place. Now we finally get to the harp. In Greek mythology, the god Apollo is shown with a lyre. Apollo is the god of the sun, of music, and of prophecy. And the parallel with Nika is almost too clean. The sun god drums of liberation. Music sitting at the heart of his identity. Apollo and Nika are basically the same archetype. Even Luffy, the current vessel of Nika, has this weird obsession with music. He wanted a musician on his crew more than anything else. He got Brook from Esperia. Now look at this. One of Apollo's most famous myths is killing a serpent, the serpent Python, a sun god slaying a giant snake. We've seen a giant serpent before. In the Elbaf mural. And in chapter 1183, when Brook's flashback starts, Oda has him strike the exact Nika pose. Shuri, the princess of Esperia, laughs identical to Nika too. And honestly, this changes how I see Emu completely. Emu's power is built on darkness, on the abyss, on black flames. His omen isn't fire, it is anti-fire. There's a layer of reality in this universe tied to death, to soul contracts, to corrupted power, and I don't think Emu invented that layer. I think he taps into it, he drains from it. Like a parasite reading off something older. And here's where the Greek myth lines up perfectly. When the Titans lost to the gods, they weren't destroyed. They were imprisoned, locked away in Tartarus, a dimensional prison beneath the underworld itself. Not killed, trapped, waiting, and that detail might be the most important one in this entire theory. Because look at how Emu speaks. He names Nika and Nidhogg directly, as if they're separate entities from the current vessels. He distinguishes Nika from Luffy. He distinguishes Nidhogg from Loki. That suggests these aren't titles, they're names of beings Emu has known personally, beings from another era, beings he might have helped lock away centuries ago, names with a face. Which means the abyss in One Piece might literally be a prison, and the souls, the essences of the First World Titans are still down there. Emu pulls from their power. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more Emu feels less like a man and more like a warden. A jailer making sure the old gods stay buried. And this turns Brook into something way more important than a comic relief musician. His powers are all soul, death, underworld. He pulled his own soul outside of his body. He freezes things using underworld energy, so Brook's connection to that realm could be the actual key to fighting Emu from inside that dimension. The crew already has its specialist. And then there's Blackbeard. The Yami Yami no Mi is visually a black hole. It sucks everything into itself. It cancels other devil fruit powers through pure absorption. And visually, the aesthetic of Emu's black flames and Blackbeard's darkness powers are weirdly similar. Both dark, both abyssal, like they're drawing on the same well. If the abyss really is a dimensional prison tied to darkness, then Blackbeard's fruit might literally be a door into it. He's not just a pirate, he's a way in. And there is one more name Emu drops in chapter 1183, Duzon. We don't know him yet. No character matches, but Emu treats him the same way he treats Nika and Nidhogg. Like a being he's faced before. Like another Titan he's eliminated and is still watching for. So Dozan might be the third name in this prison list, waiting for his vessel. And if the Titans of the First World were imprisoned, not destroyed, then everything Luffy is building in this final saga starts looking different, way different. The new dawn, the story keeps prophesying, might not just be the fall of the world government, it might not be finding the One Piece, it might be a jailbreak, a liberation of beings trapped for thousands of years, the return of a balance that snapped when the First World ended. The Titans walking again, the old sun rising, because the planet was theirs first, the giant trees, the colossal structures, the artifacts that ended up shaping every culture we've followed. All of it is leftover furniture from a previous tenant. And honestly, when you look at the harp in Esperia and understand it might belong to a being who once walked this world spreading joy and freedom at a titanic scale, everything shifts. Brook playing that song 70 years ago hits different now. He wasn't just playing in front of a beautiful monument, he was playing in front of a relic of the sun god, a relic whose power was probably still resonating, still pulsing under the stone. He didn't know it. Nobody did, but he was already inside the story, we're only now starting to read. And this is what Oda does better than anyone. He places the answer right in front of your eyes long before you have the question. The harp, the skull, the sword, they've always been there. We just didn't have enough context to know what we were looking at. And now we do. Or we're getting close. Way closer than I expected this year. And we're finally getting the real story of Brook too. That guy was a holy knight. Yeah, a literal holy knight, which only makes this whole Titan theory stronger. So let me pull it all together. The First World had Titans. They left behind artifacts that shaped every culture we love, and every culture we love is built on a tomb. Nika was not a god. He was one of those Titans, the sun god Titan, the one carrying the harp and the laugh and the drums of liberation. The god of war fought him. Both fell, both got locked into the abyss instead of dying, and Emu has been feeding on them ever since, century after century. Luffy carries Nika's name. Loki carries Nidhogg's. Someone out there probably carries Dozan. And the final saga is shaping up to be a confrontation with the warden himself. If I'm right, the One Piece isn't just a treasure, it is the trigger, the thing that finally cracks the prison open and lets the First World breathe again. And the people standing closest to that crack, Luffy, Brook, Blackbeard, are exactly the characters Oda has built around the abyss. That is not luck, that is design. The First World ended a long time ago, but based on what Oda is putting on the page right now, I don't think it is done, I think it is waking up. If you think that harp really did belong to Nika, drop your theory in the comments. I want to hear which Titan's relic excites you most. Catch you in the next one.